Hello and welcome back to yet another video. This week I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm still making a costume, but I'm making it for somebody else. And that somebody else is one of my very good friends, Alina! Isn't she beautiful? So I feel really honoured that Alina approached me to make this costume for her, because she is actually the queen of Daenery's costumes, and that is what she has asked me to make for her. She specifically wants the wedding version of Daenery's, which is this one here, which is also one that I have previously made for myself many years ago. And the cool thing about getting to make one of these costumes for Alina is that she has special cultural conditions that I need to meet when making this costume. For example, this area here needs to be a lot more covered than what it is on the actual Daenery's costume, so I get a cool little challenge of redesigning it to fit Alina's needs as well. So without any further ado, let me jump into making this costume for Alina. So the first thing I had to do was make a few modifications to Daenery's dress, mostly making it a lot more modest in the top of the bodice area and adding some caps to the top of the sleeve, because as you can see on Daenery's design, her sleeve starts halfway down the bicep and that just wouldn't do for Alina's needs. I wanted to keep the look of the sweetheart neckline, and to do that I figured I'd put an insert of a skin coloured fabric just to mimic that opening, but also keeping it modest for Alina. With my rough redesign finished, I then sent it off to Alina for approval, and as you can see, she liked it. Luckily I was able to find this pattern which suited my needs almost perfectly. We have the long sleeves, we have the dress, and then we have a little insert in the front here. However, I will be getting rid of that neck cowl there. The only issue is the sleeve is partially open at the top, but I can just sew that seam so that it finishes there, giving Alina the coverage she needs. Thank you, Simplicity 1551. Alright, onto fabrics for this costume. Initially I had just brought the silver curtain upholstery fabric, and I was going to use that for everything of the dress, including the sleeves, which I was beginning to cut out here. Next, the skin coloured fabric for the insert in the front of the bodice. So I had this colour, but as you can see it didn't quite match Alina, so I thought I would dye it. And I thought that would be a really simple thing to do, following the instructions on the RIP website for the particular type of fabric it was. In this case, it was a nylon fabric, so the synthetic dyes should have worked. Let's see how that goes. Hello, welcome to day 2 of working on this costume. So, yesterday I cut out all the pieces and I attempted to dye what'll be the front panel here an Alina type skin colour. So first things first, the dye job didn't really take. I followed the instructions, used the synthetic dye for the nylon because that's what it recommended, and we're still out here looking like Casper. So, not using that anymore, instead I got this broadcloth, which is now going to go there, which is also cool because it doesn't stretch, so it'll have its structural integrity. Awesome. Second problem I encountered today was this fabric itself. So as you can see on this piece here, I've actually overlocked along every seam, and that's because this fabric frays like crazy. Like, you look at it the wrong way and it just falls apart, which is incredibly frustrating, but as soon as you put a finished edge on it, it's pretty cool, the sleeve. So I wanted to do a nice little rolled hem on them using my overlocker, but that finish isn't going to be strong enough for them and they will continue to fray, which I don't want. And I didn't want to do anything like a folded hem because that's going to make them very bulky. So new plan, we are going to use the same fabric for the shoulder area. So that fabric will go to there, and then you'll hit the armband, and then new fabric from there down is this lovely silver gold sheer stuff. So that'll look really cool and flowy and drapey, but this part will still be covered. So let's get on to actually putting this dress together. So the first thing I did was cut out the insert pieces for the bodice out of the broadcloth fabric. Then I decided to sew the dress panels together, starting with the side front panels. And then the side back panels.
Then I pinned the front and back panels to my mannequin to test the fit, before finally sewing together the centre back panel and the sides. And finally, the shoulder seams.
Alright, so the base dress is mostly done. All I need to do now is finish this insert piece, do the facing, and the sleeves. I also have a little bit of decorating to do with some ribbon, which I'll show you when I get around to it as well. But anyway, let me start on the sleeves.
So using the original fabric piece that I'd cut out of the sleeves initially, I marked down where halfway down the bicep would be and marked that across the sleeve. I then cut this piece out, and this would now become the opaque piece that sits in the top portion of the sleeve. But first I wanted to finish that bottom edge, so I overlocked it first and then I rolled it over itself twice and then stitched it down in place. Next I had to cut the entire sleeve pattern out again, but out of the new fabric this time. Which sadly I forgot to push the record button on my phone for to show me actually cutting the fabric. But after it was cut out, I used the rolled hem foot on my machine to give it a tiny little rolled hem edge. Then I lay that opaque sleeve cap that I'd cut out earlier on the inside of the new transparent fabric and basted it along the top edge.
Good morning! It is day 3 of working on Alina's Daenery's costume. Let me walk you through what I'm intending to do to it today. Hoping to get it finished actually. First of all, sleeves. So before the sleeves go on, I actually need to attach this crisscrossy bit. So for this I've just cut strips of the dress fabric on the diagonal and they get threaded through a little buckle there and then tied in the back like that. So they need to attach under the arm here before the sleeves go on. That's fine. I think I'm just going to gather it a little bit and then sew it to the sleeve. Then decoration. So I have this ribbon here which I'm going to use to mimic the look of the halter neck strap that the actual Daenery's dress has. So I'm just going to sew it in place along the center of this shoulder strap, along the back and along the top of the back there. And once that's done, I have a little black trim that I'm going to add there as well to once again mimic the look of the metal shoulder strap thingy that she has. Once that's done, I will finish the inserts properly and put the facing on the dress. And then that is the dress minus the sleeves done and the zip in the back. But the zip in the back's easy peasy. Then we move on to the sleeves. So this one here I already have ready to go. You saw me make it yesterday. So in the top here you can see we have the opaque fabric, and where it ends just here I'm going to use the same ribbon that I've used for the halter neck. I think what I'm going to do is gather the sleeve down and then sew this ribbon over the top of the gathered area so you don't see the gathers, and then I have a little button which I'm going to use to decorate that to once again mimic the look of what she actually has there. So without any further ado, let me get to work.
So first I worked on the crisscrossy straps that go across the front, and I tried to gather these, but they just really didn't gather. I think it's because the fabric was too thick. So what I did was actually ended up just hand pleating it in the front so that it looked nice. Then I basted them into the sleeve holes of the dress. Next onto the decorative ribbon, so I have a wide silver one here and a really skinny black one. I first cut the silver ribbon to length and then I layered on the black ribbon on top of it and then stitched it down in place just to mimic the look of what Daenery's has on her dress. Happy with how the ribbon turned out, I then pinned it to the neckline of the dress, leaving 1.5 centimeters for seam allowance so that it didn't get trapped in that when I sewed the insert in. Speaking of the insert, I needed to cut out some iron-on interfacing just to give it some strength and stability, so that's what I'm doing here. And here I am applying the interfacing with an iron. Next I sew these facing pieces into the actual insert itself. Repeating with the facing for the dress piece as well. Then I trim away the excess fabric from the seams using my pinking shears.
Right, both of the interfacings are done. Now they get sewn in and facing is in. All that's left to do now is the sleeves. But seriously, can we just take a moment to appreciate the fake halter neck trim, whatever that is, and zippers in the back. This is looking so stunning. I'm so happy with how it's coming together. Anyway, sleeves. Hello, so I just did that thing where I completely finish something and don't record any of the process because I'm using 100% of my mental brain capacity to try and figure out how to do it in the first place. But look, isn't it pretty? Anyway, let me walk you through how I made the sleeve. So the first thing I did is put a little rolled hem along the edge of the organza layer. Very pretty. Then you come up to the top here, and on the inside, I don't know if you can see that, but the top half of the sleeve from the band up is lined with the same fabric as the dress. Therefore, keeping it opaque, after it was lined, I then gathered where the armband sits just ever so slightly, and then using the same ribbon I used in the collar there, I folded it in half and then top stitched it in place, and then I sewed up the gap in the sleeve down to where the ribbon finishes so that it opens up there. And then I sewed this cute little button on, and then a couple of beads just to mimic the look of what she has there. And then the sleeve gets sewn into the rest of the dress, and it is done! Wonderful.
So continuing on from basting the two pieces together, the next step that I did was draw a line along the bottom edge of the opaque fabric to show where I needed to do the gathering, which I had to do by hand because we all know how the machine gathering went earlier on the crisscross straps that had to go into the sleeve holes. It didn't go well. So what I'm doing here is just doing it in half sections and then gathering it down to a size that's just bigger than her biceps, so she'll still have plenty of room for movement and comfort. Then I took the same silver ribbon that I used in the neckline and folded it in half and then sewed it straight over the top of that gathered edge that I'd just created. I then did some tiny little pleats into the top portion of the sleeve. Next I folded the sleeve in half and then I sewed along this edge here, stopping right at the end of the silver ribbon. I then added a decorative button and a little cluster of beads. And with that, the sleeve is then sewn into the dress.
The dress is done. And so am I. I'm so tired. I'm going to go back to bed. But first I am going to post this down to Alina. I really hope you like it, Alina. I'm so happy with how it turned out. It looks really cute. Anyway, on to Alina.
Not a queen. A Khaleesi.
And there you have it. That is how I made the Daenerys costume for Alina. Now I am so stoked with how this turned out. I think it's a really good representation of Daenerys while still keeping it modest for Alina. And honestly, she just looked so drop dead gorgeous in it. I mean, she looks like that in every costume that she wears. The only thing that I'm sad about with this is that I didn't get to see it in person, but hopefully she wears it again to a future convention so I can see it and fawn all over her. The only thing I probably would have done different on this costume is I would have done a blind hem along the bottom of this dress, and I didn't learn about what those were until after I'd made this and already sent it off to her, or else that's what it would have had on the bottom. But other than that, yeah, just really happy with how quickly it came together and how beautiful Alina looks in it. With all that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. Please let me know via like, via leaving a comment down below, or maybe even subscribing. I do a lot of sewing, crafting and fun related things here on this channel, and I usually try and upload every week or so. And until next time, I'll see you then. Goodbye! And tie. And then tie. Okay. God, stop burping.